Hi, my loves, and welcome back to I'm on Your Side with me, your host, Sierra Boudreau. How are we? I feel like it's been so long since we talked, and really, it's just been 2 weeks, or not really even 2 full weeks. I missed last week because, guys, get this. I had this mic issue, and by mic issue, I mean I recorded the first part of the podcast, went up to turn the camera off, and then turn it back on because I have to reset it every 25 minutes. Technology is so fun. Sat back down, thought that I clicked to turn the Zoom mic on, and didn't, then recorded another 25-minute segment, went up, turned the camera on, sat back down, realized I'd never even turned the Zoom mic on. So there was no audio for a good portion of the episode, meaning there was no episode. So I'm so sorry about that. I am being extra diligent from here on out, making sure that I do click the record button. As you see, if you are watching, I keep looking down to make sure that it's recording, because the way my heart sank when I sat down to edit it, I was like, okay, I'm going to edit this episode, get it up. No, because there is no audio to be heard. So there is no episode to go live. All that to say, that's why we missed last week. I missed you guys so much. I love these conversations we get to have. I love hearing y'all's responses, y'all's feedback, all of it. I just think the podcast is such a special place, and I'm so thankful that we get to join here together to do it. So when we miss a week, it feels kind of like a big deal. That said, we are back. We are better than ever, and I have some updates for you guys, just some personal life updates, of course, as we do. What am I doing? Where am I going? All of that stuff. So if you are watching the episode, behind me, you'll notice we have new art. We have a melodramatic woman lounging on a green couch, and I saw it and I was like, oh, me for sure, because I have a huge green sectional that's very cozy that I also lounge on in a very melodramatic way with a book in my hand. I mean, I saw her and I was like, no, she gets me, I get her, we're on the same page. So naturally I had to buy it. So this replaced the Matisse print. I got her, so excited about that. And I just feel like time has been flying. I was in therapy the other day and she was like, how are you? And I was like, oh, I don't even know the last time I sat down and asked myself that. I feel like in the past I would have a busy week or a busy few days and be like, oh, a couple days flew by or this week flew by. But I feel like I looked up and it's May, which is insane to me. It's like, where did all of the time go? And I just feel like the older I get, the more I feel that way. The older I get, the more I realize time really is so, so precious and it slips away so quickly. So it's our responsibility to hold on to it as much as we can and do the most with it that we absolutely can. So that's what I've been kind of trying to focus on, just like while I do have busy weeks and while I do feel like time is flying away, being really intentional with my time. And it helps me a lot when I go down this spiral of like, oh my God, time is so fleeting and what has even gone on and who am I and where am I and what time is it? Like all that stuff. When I'm going down that anxiety spiral, it really helps me to keep my to-do list so that when I look back, I'm like, oh, what have I done for the past week? I can look back at all the things that I actually have done, the things that I have accomplished, the things that I started working on. And it makes me feel so much better knowing that I am actually being productive with my weeks, because it's so easy for me to let time fly by and then I just start to feel like I haven't been productive and I haven't really gotten anything done. And then I start to feel shame and all of that stuff that we'll get into another time. And so it really helps me when I can look back at my to-do list and say, okay, I've done all of this stuff, and I keep it. It's like in a book, a to-do list book, if you will. So it's not just like I fill up a page and I throw it away. I can actually look back on it. And then I have a desk calendar, of course, and my desk calendar has all of my bigger events so that I know what I'm looking forward to. I know what just passed. I know what's coming up, all of that stuff. And that really helps me, one, for my ADHD, just to feel like I'm organized, because in the past, before I even realized I had ADHD, I would always just tell myself I'd remember something, and odds are I would always forget whatever I told myself I was going to remember. If I don't write it down, it just escapes my brain. It can sit in there for maybe 30 seconds and then it just floats away like a little fairy. I'd be like getting ready for bed and my mind was not wandering, and I realized, oh, there's like 5 things that I said I was going to get done that I didn't get done. But my to-do list and my desk calendar helps me a lot with that, and I just feel a lot better about it. I feel like I can actually get things done. It's really important for me to feel like I can honor commitments that I make to other people and commitments that I make to myself. And so when I actually write them down, I can get them done. I get a sense of accomplishment, which is also an interesting thing now that I'm medicated for ADHD. I realized that in the past, when I would complete a task or, get something done that took a long time, I wouldn't get this sense of pride or accomplishment. I would just get this relief of like, oh, thank God that's done. And then almost instant worry that I had something else to start working on. And now that I'm medicated, I feel like when I cross things off my to-do list and I just see a complete list and I feel like I was productive that day, I do get a sense of pride, which is just kind of new to me. I do feel like it is more rewarding for me to complete tasks these days now that I get that sense of excitement and that sense of joy, and it motivates me to complete more tasks. And so that's something that I've just realized lately. And what else is going on? Oh my God. So a week from today, actually, no, a week from yesterday, Alex and I are going on vacation. We're going to Maui for our anniversary. And I'm so excited because neither of us have ever been to Maui. He's been to another island in Hawaii, I'm pretty sure, but I've never been to Hawaii at all. And so we're going to Maui. We're going to spend, I think, like 4 or 5 days there. It's kind of a longer trip. I think it's 4 days. And so we're spending 4 days there. And I'm just really excited to spend time with him. I'm excited to get away from everything. It's been kind of a busy season. If you keep up with influencer trend cycles, you may notice that things really start to pick up in the warmer months, in the summer especially, and then kind of die down a little bit in the fall, and then pick up again during the holiday season. That's just kind of how it goes. And so I feel like the beginning of the year, I was, I had stuff. I was busy-ish, but I wasn't as busy as I am now. Now that it's summer, I feel like everything is due all the time, concepts, videos, whatever. And this is not in any way me saying that what I do is hard or more challenging than what a lot of you guys do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I am also busy, just in a different way. And so I've been getting a lot of that stuff done. And I'm really excited to go on vacation and not have anything due, not have anything to work on, and get to fully decompress. And last time I was on vacation, I am pretty sure I told you guys about this. I'm actually 100% sure I talked to you guys about this, that I was in this really, really bad anxiety spiral about my TikTok numbers. I, at the time, was losing followers faster than I was gaining them. While I wasn't losing a large amount of followers and like the grand sense of it all, I just wasn't gaining as quickly as I was used to gaining. And so it looked like I was plummeting a lot. And so the whole vacation I was spent like staring at my phone, anxious when I didn't have Wi-Fi, anxious when I didn't have service because I couldn't check the numbers. And it was really, really bad for my mental health. It was hard on my relationship because I couldn't look up and just enjoy this wonderful vacation that Alex and I were on together. I was so the opposite of present. I was just so removed from the actual world around me and so focused on my phone. And I am so thankful to say that I'm not in that place anymore, and so thankful to say that when I post a video, I post it and then I log off of the app. I do very, very little scrolling on TikTok these days. And that's not to say I don't love TikTok and appreciate it for what it's done for me in my life. And I'm still on TikTok, posting videos. Like, of course, you guys see I post a video or two every day, or at least I try to. But the time that I spend scrolling has really, really lessened just because I had to prioritize my mental health, and I had to prioritize making sure that I felt okay about myself and not I felt okay about external opinions of myself, right? And I think that when you are an influencer on TikTok specifically, a lot of the people that you follow are your mutuals, and then they become your peers. And then it feels like the next step is that they become your competition. And especially if you guys are in the same niche or in the same kind of category, it seems like with content, you notice that you guys share a lot of brand deals. It even happens sometimes where you'll get pitched a brand deal and you'll deny it for whatever reason, or the brand will pull it for whatever reason. And then you see one of your peers work on that deal a little bit later, and you're like, oh, that actually could have been mine. And then you start the cycle of, I wonder how much they got paid for that. I wonder how many reshoots they had to do. I wonder how many edits they had to do. I wonder this. I wonder that. Like, do they like them more? And it just was really, really dangerous for my mental health. And I was comparing myself so much to my peers. And I don't want to compare myself to my peers. I don't want them to be my competition. I want to be proud of them and excited for them. And the only way I knew how to do that, and also I wanted to enjoy their content just as I would hope they enjoy my content. But the only way I could actually get to that point again was to spend significantly less time on social media. And by doing that, I am in a much healthier place. And I am back to being excited for my peers whenever they get these really great opportunities, and being excited about seeing them post a new video. And when I do scroll on TikTok, not feeling like I am giving my last 10% that I have, I feel like I am just giving a little bit. And then I get the rest for myself. I get the rest for my friends. I get the rest for my relationship. And TikTok doesn't actually have all of me. And so I'm really, really thankful for that. And I'm so excited to go to Hawaii and just spend time being present, because like I said, last vacation, I was so not present. And so I'm just very thankful to be in a very different place in my life now. I just have gone through a mental shift, and it took a lot of time, and it took therapy, and it took being honest with my therapist, because being honest with your therapist is different than just going to therapy. You can go to therapy and lie. You can go to therapy and bend the truth. You can go to therapy and tell half truths. But if you go to therapy and you are actually honest and you are willing to do the work, your life truly can change. I have this inclination that a lot of people who say therapy doesn't work for them are people who refuse to be fully honest with their therapist. And I know it can be a really daunting situation, and it's so, so vulnerable, but ultimately they are there to help you. They're not there to judge you. They are there to guide you. They are not there to shoot you down. And so I think that shift is really, really complicated though, after you have been maybe in abusive relationships in the past, or have had really shitty friends who didn't like to listen to you, or family who told you to stop crying. They don't want to hear that, or go sit down somewhere. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you've heard it. So if you have come from those situations, I understand how therapy feels like just another place to get rejected. But once you are able to move past that and find a therapist that genuinely does care for you and want to do the work with you, it is transformative. I don't think that I have much else going on, except I was talking to someone on my team today. We had our weekly call, and I was just saying how I think that I'm gonna not drink until I go on vacation, which isn't very long, but there is a weekend in between now and when I go on vacation. And I typically don't drink during the week unless I'm going out to dinner, then I'll have a margarita or something. But in the weekend is when I tend to drink. And so I'm gonna try not to drink the rest of this week, gonna not drink this weekend. I'm really gonna try my best to not consume any alcohol before I go on vacation, because I just want to see how I feel. I feel like I've been in this really big cycle of drinking during the weekends, and then I'm like not eating in a way that makes me feel good, and then I don't feel good. And my last straw was this past weekend. I had drank Friday night, Saturday night. Friday night, I felt fine. Saturday, I woke up, went to my spin class, felt, whatever. I was like moderately hungover, but enough to where I could get up and get moving and have a day. But Sunday morning, I woke up and I felt absolutely awful. I was disoriented. My eyes were super heavy. My body felt heavy. I could barely take care of the dogs without feeling like I needed to sit down. I felt nauseous. I felt headachy. Like I just felt awful. And I had a Pilates class booked for that morning. And then I had brunch with a friend who I haven't seen in a long time, gotten to like spend time with in a long time. And I had to cancel my Pilates class within the 12-hour cancellation window. So that was $14. And I had to cancel on brunch because I genuinely could not get it together enough to like drive a car, go to brunch, sit there, be in a loud environment, see sunshine. Like I really was just not well enough to do that. And I felt awful. And then I realized like if that's what alcohol is doing to me, if that's what drinking is doing to me, I need to take another look at my relationship with alcohol. If I feel like I can't move my body when I want to move my body, and I can't see friends that I love and adore and really want to spend time with, then maybe my relationship with alcohol is what needs to change. And every time I drink, I don't need to be drinking that much. It's okay to have one or two drinks and be done. But the way that I was drinking and the way that I have been drinking on the weekend is like I'm drinking intentionally to get drunk, which I don't think is anything wrong with that if that's what you want to do occasionally. But for weeks now, months now, on the weekends, I'm drinking to get drunk, and I just don't really feel good. And it's not one of those situations where I'm doing it because I want to impress people or do it because all my friends are doing it. I'm just doing it because I thought that's what I wanted to do, and it served me for a point in my life. I had a lot of fun, but now I'm not sure if that serves me in the same way that it used to. And I think that that's totally okay. I think I just need to reevaluate and shift something around and see what else works. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to go out. I love going out. I love being with my friends. I really have started to enjoy the Denver bar scene just because you get to know people, because it's not really like Denver's not really that big, you know what I mean? And so I've been really enjoying my time going out, and there's other alternatives. I could take a gummy. I could smoke before. Nowadays, if you guys haven't heard of Nowadays, this is not sponsored by any means, but if you guys haven't heard of Nowadays, it is a THC drink. It tastes like a coconut juice almost, but I don't even want to say coconut. It's like very tropical. So you can mix it with almost anything. You can mix it with Diet Coke. You can mix it with regular Coke. You can mix it with an iced tea. You can mix it with anything. It tastes delicious. And I'm pretty sure my code is Sierra20. I'm like 99% sure my code is Sierra20, and that gets you 20% off your order. And it's just, like I said, a THC drink, and you can get the 2 milligram, the 4 milligram. No, the 2 milligram, the 6 milligram, and the 10 milligram are the offerings right now. I'm not completely sure if they have a 4 milligram, but I don't think that they do. So, and you can always half the dosage, of course, because it tells you exactly how much to put to get that dosage. So you could do half of that, you could do a quarter of that, you can kind of play with it, mix and match, whatever your tolerance is, just being careful and safe according to your own rules and logic. And so I really have been enjoying Nowadays occasionally, but I think that I want to start introducing that more into my going out routine rather than alcohol, because like I said, alcohol just hasn't been making me feel the way that I want to feel. And like I said, I think it served me for a time in my life, but it's not really serving me right now. And because it's not serving me right now, I think it's a really good decision to take a look at that and reevaluate, maybe shift some things around. So I'm going to try not to drink until I go on vacation. I don't think it's going to be hard at all. I think I simply will just say no. And on vacation, I think I'm just going to be more conscious of my drinking because I don't want to be hungover on vacation. I don't want to feel like shit on vacation. You know what I mean? And on vacation, Alex and I typically don't drink that much anyway. We're just not huge drinkers when we're by ourselves. And so I don't foresee us drinking a lot this vacation, but I don't want to say I'm not going to drink at all during vacation because I'm not sure that that's going to be true. So I think that it'll be a lot more limited, but I don't think it's going to be zero. But I'm really excited to see how my body reacts. I'm really excited to have a weekend where I just feel great all weekend, where I can wake up and go to my 8:30 class, my 9:30 class. I can go to brunch. I can go for a walk. I can go for a run if I want to and just feel so good and not just be living for the nights, but be living for the days as well. So that's it for my updates. And I'm glad we got to catch up. I feel like it's been a minute since we've caught up. There's some things that I talk about on the podcast and just things that I'm thinking and dealing with that I don't talk about on Instagram or on TikTok, just because this feels like a more comfortable medium for me. And it's a long form, right? So I can be as thorough with my thoughts as I'd like to be. So I'm glad that we got to catch up, glad that we got to chit chat about what's going on, what I'm doing, where I'm going, all of that stuff. But I wanted to get into the heart of the episode. It's just a recap episode of this TED Talk that I watched called The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. It was recommended to me by my therapist, and I'm going to tell you why in the episode, but it really did resonate with me, and it really did change a lot of my perspectives, and I unlocked some key parts of myself that I didn't even know were locked away. So I wanted to share the recap. If you guys want to watch the TED Talk before you listen to this episode, totally fine. That said, you don't need to. I'm going to explain everything that she talked about and just give my own thoughts and opinions and my own beliefs on these things. But if you want to watch the episode to get deeper context, then feel free and then come back to the episode later. The episode is completely free. It's on YouTube. The Power of Vulnerability. That's what it's called. Brené Brown. I'm sure you've heard of her. I'm so sure you've heard of her. But if not, she is incredible and specializes in emotions around shame and guilt, embarrassment, all of those things. And so I'm going to talk about why that's been so important to me in this episode. But let's go ahead and get into it. So in therapy, I've been working through a lot of what shame means to me and what embarrassment means to me. And over the course of the past, I want to say 3 or 4 sessions, we have started to unlock the fact that a lot of my life has been ruled by or guided by this fear of shame or embarrassment, that I will do a lot of things or not do a lot of things because I don't want to be embarrassed and I don't want to feel that shame. And that has really been a key factor of the driving force of my life. I've spent so much time thinking about shame and embarrassment, thinking about how to avoid it, think about how I felt it, all of these things. And to clarify, I don't necessarily mean shame or embarrassment from other people. I'm not easily shamed by other people. And I want to say that before we even get into the thick of the episode, that we could all stand to be less easily shamed. We really, really could. That a lot of us carry the shame and embarrassment from other people because we allow them to shape us and tell us who we are and who we should be. And when we don't feel like we measure up, even if we feel good about what we're doing, even if we feel good about who we are, if we don't measure up to someone else's expectation of perfection, of goodness, of whatever it may be, then we don't feel good enough, which is really, really damaging to us. And so on the flip side, when I say that I've been dealing with a lot of shame and embarrassment, I think that it's not necessarily from these external factors. I think it's these standards that I've held myself to. And sure, I think a lot of these standards are learned behaviors from other people, especially from my childhood. But I'm not so worried about what other people think about me when I'm out with my friends. I'm not so worried about what other people think about me when I'm posting my videos online. I really don't care too much or think too much about external validation in that way because I feel really good about what I'm doing. I think that it's very little ways that I carry shame and embarrassment. I think like one thing that seems so silly, but I literally work through it in therapy, that when my nails aren't done, I feel a sense of shame. I feel like everyone's looking and I feel like I don't look presentable enough and I feel like I don't look good enough. And it's one of those things that because that's such a standard I set for myself, it's not that I'm necessarily worried that other people are going to think poorly of me, or maybe it is that I'm worried that other people are going to think poorly of me because I already think poorly of myself. And I think that's maybe the deciding thing between whether I'm going to feel shame or whether I'm not, that shame is something that I've already decided for myself that I think other people are going to agree with. And shame is not for me what external sources say about me that I don't agree with. I don't very easily allow people people to tell me who I am or tell me who I should be. But when I have an idea in my head of who I am or who I should be, and I feel like I don't measure up to that, that's when I start to feel shame, because not only am I feeling it myself, but I feel like other people are noticing that and other people are agreeing with that, which then compounds the shame and embarrassment that I'm feeling. I hope that makes sense. I wanted to explain it in that way, but we could all stand to be less easily shamed. And that's really what I'm trying to work on right now. But like I said, when my nails aren't done, when my hair's not done, when I'm poorly dressed for an occasion, I find that I really like the way I dress, but I find that there's certain outfits I should wear in certain situations. And when I'm wearing the wrong outfit for the wrong situation, I feel a lot of shame about that. For instance, I was at this birthday party and I thought that we were meeting at a bar. So I got ready as if we were going to a bar. And then I found out that we were actually doing like a house party situation, but not a house party where there was like a lot of people. It was like a house party where there was maybe like, I think 7 to 10 people there, very low key, very chill. And I was wearing entirely a wrong outfit for that occasion, right? And while I looked cute, and while my outfit was really nice, it wasn't the right outfit for that situation. And so I felt really embarrassed, and I felt embarrassed thinking that other people were looking at me like, what is she wearing? Why is she wearing that? Because I already agreed. And so I'm working on starting to remove that, and I'm working on caring less about that. But it's really, really fucking hard when it comes down to it, because this is something that I've done to myself, and these are standards and expectations I've had of myself for a really long time. And so it's hard to unlearn that even if my nails aren't perfectly done, there's no reason to be embarrassed. It's genuinely not a big deal. If I'm wearing the wrong outfit for the occasion, okay, now I know, and next time I'll wear a different outfit. It's really not a big deal, but it's hard for myself in that moment to feel like it's not a big deal. And when I reflect upon it, then I can remind myself, okay, no one even remembers it. You barely even remember it. It is not huge, but in the moment, it feels really, really heavy. And I really feel uncomfortable with those emotions and with those feelings. And so what I tend to do is kind of push it down, and then it explodes. And then I feel really overwhelmed, and I feel like I suddenly am embarrassing. I feel like I am shameful, even though that's not true. Doing something embarrassing doesn't make you embarrassing. Doing something that you may perceive to be shameful doesn't make you shameful. Sometimes our actions are separate from our identity for various reasons. And I'm not saying if you continuously do something and that becomes a pattern in your life, that becomes part of your identity, that really does hold true. If you make a mistake and you do something that's not actually a defining characteristic of who you are, that is not your being. You're gonna fuck up sometimes. And even if you're just making a choice that in the moment you think is the right choice, and then lo and behold, time passes, you realize that was not the right choice, that is not a defining factor of who you are. You just made a choice. And the next time that situation comes around, you may choose to make a different one. And that's okay too. So when I'm talking to you guys about these things, I want you to know that I'm also experiencing them, and I'm also going through them. I don't have all of the answers to getting rid of shame and embarrassment. I don't have all of the answers to self-soothe in that way, and I'm working through it. I'm talking about it in therapy. I am doing research on it. I'm reading about it. I am really trying to be intentional with how I spend my time so that I can start removing these feelings of shame and embarrassment from ruling my life, because not only do I not deserve to live that way, but obviously you guys don't deserve to live that way. And I am so sure that there's more than just me going through this. And so I just want you to know, like I said, these aren't fully resolved thoughts. These are just current thoughts. This is where I am right now. I figure I don't want to only come to you guys when I have all of the answers, when I have it figured out. I want to come to you guys and us work through things together, because I feel like that's how this whole thing started. And I never want you guys to think that I have everything figured out and I have everything perfect and I just know everything, because I obviously so clearly do not. But a lot of the time when I create the inspirational content that I create, or just the personal development content that I create, I'm coming to it from a place of resolve, not from a place of going through it. And this is not a situation where I'm able to come from a place of resolve. So the TED Talk starts off and she says, shame is the fear of disconnection. And as soon as I heard that, it completely resonated with me. A lot of the times when I feel shame, and it's internal shame, I think that I have this feeling of disconnection with myself, a situation where I feel like I knew better, so I should have done better, or a situation where I know that I've looked better, I know that I've acted better, I know that I've whatever better, and then I don't do that in the moment. And so I feel this shame from myself, and I feel disconnected from myself, because I feel like I try very, very hard to meet my own standards and meet my own measures of success. And sometimes that just can't happen. Like sometimes I fall short because I'm a person, but I care so much about it. And I'm working through in therapy right now that I actually have a lot of perfectionist qualities, and I expect a lot of myself. And there's nothing wrong with expecting a lot of yourself, but when you expect so much of yourself that you don't feel good or worthy when you don't meet up to that expectation, that's when it becomes a problem. And it's becoming a problem for me. And so I've kind of been struggling with that. So when she says that shame is a fear of disconnection, I instantly resonated with that because I also obviously feel external shame from time to time. And I think that when I feel external shame, it's like, oh, they're not going to like me anymore. They're not going to want to be around me anymore. They don't trust me anymore, whatever it may be. Like whatever I spin up in my head is what I start to believe for that moment. And while sometimes I can reflect on it and change that thought pattern, in the moment, that's kind of where I ruminate. And so when I feel this internal shame or this external shame, I feel a lot of disconnection from either myself or the people around me, which makes it feel even worse because not only do I feel embarrassed about something or ashamed about something, I also feel like that then speaks to my character, if that makes sense. And if it speaks to my character, then people are going to have this different idea of me. I want to give you this example. It was last week, I was working with a brand and I got my due dates mixed up. And so a video that was supposed to be due a day last week didn't actually end up getting submitted because the video wasn't shot. And the video had to be filmed over a series of days. And so I am not someone, if something has to be filmed over a series of days, I'm not someone who films it all in one day and just changes my hair and outfit. Like I really will film it over a series of days because it just feels better to me to do it that way. So I didn't film it over a series of days. And it wasn't even a situation where I could film it over a series of days. It very much needed to be filmed in a timely order. And I didn't do that. And so I had to tell my managers, can you please reach out to them and tell them what happened and let them know that these are the things I'm willing to do to make it right. I feel so bad. And I had therapy later that day and I sobbed, like truly sobbed, because I felt so embarrassed and so ashamed of myself that I got my due dates mixed up and I didn't do something in the way that it was expected of me and the way that I expected it of myself. And I felt like I let someone down. And it's one of those things where you make one mistake and it's a mistake, but you make two mistakes and it feels like a pattern. And so I think that I always live in fear of that second mistake because then I feel like I can't make any more. And I know deep in my heart that's not true, but that's how it feels. It feels like, okay, I can make one mistake and it's just a mistake. It's not a big deal. But then if I make a second mistake, people are going to start thinking this is part of who I am. And God forbid I make a third mistake because then it's a pattern of behavior. And I think that this fear was really instilled in me when I worked in corporate. I felt very much like I was always just trying to prove myself, even though I had proven myself more than enough. Like I had never gotten in trouble with my boss. I never got in trouble with my manager. There was this one situation where I was making the same mistake repeatedly. And I did actually have a conversation with my higher ups and that was really necessary. And I'm glad that happened because I got the opportunity to be honest with them about why that mistake was being made and the situation resolved itself. But I think that I carried a lot of shame. And had I just gone to them and said, hey, I keep making this mistake. This is the reason. What can we do? The situation would have gotten solved before it became a pattern of behavior. And I wouldn't have had to apologize as profusely. It would have just been fixed. I think that because I had these perfectionist tendencies, I'm afraid of people knowing that I'm not perfect all of the time, even though that's obviously a given. But I want everything I do to be the best. I want everything I say to be the best. I want everything I work on to be the best. And when it's not, I think that I feel really, really upset about it. And I carry that with me. And so when she said, shame is the fear of disconnection, it really resonated because I can pinpoint so many times in my life where I let that shame disconnect me from people, even if that wasn't their intention, even if they would have never shamed me, they would have never judged me, they would have completely understood. I myself allow that shame to breed disconnection and I push away so that I can start to feel better, even though that's not the healthiest thing to do. And so if you're someone like me who does that same thing, I think that it's really worth it for us to remember that when we are working these jobs, these corporate jobs, whatever kind of job you have, you were hired for a reason. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. And also, if you notice that you keep making the same mistake over and over or something just isn't clicking for you, it is up to you to raise that conversation before it becomes a problem. And if you're in these relationships, in these friendships where you feel like you've done something embarrassing or shameful, and so you start to push them away because you don't want them to say anything to you and you don't want them to judge you, you have to give people the opportunity to love you. You have to give people the opportunity to tell you it wasn't a big deal. And you would be surprised by how much healing can come from that. I'm experiencing that firsthand. I think just recently, as I've been learning this and dissecting this, I have noticed how much closer I feel to the people around me because I'm no longer letting my internal shame push me away from deep relationships, healthy relationships, where all these people want to do is love and support me. She goes on to say that some people have a low sense of worthiness, and a low sense of worthiness is often bred from our childhood because when people have children, they look at their kids very often and say, this kid is perfect. This kid has done no wrong, will do no wrong. And then over time, they realize their kid is actually a human and their kid is not perfect and has done wrong and will do wrong. Their babies, their children, their teens, whatever, they're going to do things that they don't agree with or they wish they didn't do, X, Y, and Z. And so when you grow up in a household where your worthiness is based on your perfection, that can really fuck with you as an adult, as it has fucked with me. Because I feel like growing up, there was this idea that I was meant to be the golden child. I was meant to be the great one, the perfect one. I was supposed to have it all figured out. And in any moment in my life where I didn't show those qualities and I didn't measure up to the idea of success, the idea of goodness, the idea of grace that somebody had laid out for me and expected of me, then I was told that I was no longer good, that I was no longer worthy, that I had done something very, very bad that needed to be fixed. Even if in the grand scheme, it wasn't a big deal. Even if in the little scheme, it wasn't a big deal. But that had me develop this low sense of worthiness. And because I walk around with a low sense of worthiness, that means that I walk around with this desire to constantly prove myself. I don't think I'm nearly as bad with this as I was in the past. I do feel like I have a higher just base level sense of worthiness of my own validation, my own affirmation, my own goodness that I like to live by. And I'm really, really proud of that. But a low sense of worthiness, I think, can appear in these random places where you wouldn't expect it to. You wouldn't expect it to show up. And all of a sudden, you care so much about proving yourself. And I found that when I was in situations in the corporate world or in friendships I wasn't supposed to be in, just in two places that I don't really think that I was supposed to be in for as long as I was in a situation with some friends, and then in the job that I was in, I started to constantly feel like I needed to prove myself. And so I was shouting and always trying to be the first one to speak and the loudest voice in the room because I was constantly trying to get everyone to see how good I was and how worthy I was because I didn't believe it myself. And the only way that I would believe it is if somebody told me that I was. If somebody in that friend group told me that I was being a good friend or I was being good, then I believed it and it meant a lot to me. Or if someone at work praised me, then I would carry that with me and it would mean a lot to me because I was coming from this deficient value of myself and allowing other people to build upon me. Whereas when you already have a very baseline, a good sense of worthiness, when people compliment you or praise you, it feels like an added bonus, but it doesn't feel necessary because you already know that you're good. And that's something that I really struggled with and something that I'm still working through, just knowing inherently that I am good, which is so interesting because that's what we talk about, you and I, all of the time on TikTok, on Reels, on the podcast. Like we talk about knowing inherently that we are good, that we are worthy, and I still struggle with it. And I think that I've grown so much and developed a lot, but still it sneaks in sometimes these unexpected ways where I look up and I realize, oh my God, I'm trying to prove myself right now. And why is it that I'm trying to prove myself right now? Why is it that I need everyone to like me? Why do I need everyone to agree with me? Why do I need everyone to believe me and also believe in me? Is it not enough that I feel good about what I'm saying? Is my own belief not enough? Is my own general sense of goodness and affirmation not enough? And I've been allowing myself to reframe that in my brain as it happens, and it has saved me a lot of that post hangout, that post meeting people, that post whatever anxiety, ruminating and going back and thinking, what did I say? What did I do? How did I say it? How did I do it? It has saved me a lot of that because when I leave those situations knowing that I really liked how I presented myself, then there's really no need to make sure that everyone else did too. Then she says, blame is a way to discharge pain and discomfort. I I think that it softened my heart to a lot of situations I didn't even realize my heart was hardened to. I think a lot about in my childhood where I was blamed for things. I was told that I did something bad and therefore a bad thing happened, whatever. I think about those things a lot and I reflect and I think about my family and how maybe blaming me allowed them to relieve themselves of pain and discomfort. If they're no longer harboring it, they can push it into someone else who's more impressionable, who then can change and shift to their liking, then don't have to feel that anymore. And it's not necessarily about protecting me and making sure that I don't feel that blame, that I don't feel that shame. It's just making sure that they didn't feel it. And I think that's what happens when you grow up in a household of people who very much care about themselves first and then everyone else second. And that's kind of the household that I grew up in. I talk about this more in the family affairs episode a couple episodes back, but it was hard for me. But when I heard that, it softened my heart a lot because it's like maybe what they were doing was not good, and maybe that does and did have long-term effects on who I am today. That said, I have also been in situations where I was carrying so much hurt, so much pain, so much shame that I just wanted to push it into someone else and I wanted to give it to someone else so that they can feel it and I don't have to feel it anymore. I think about situations where I was so full of vitriol and so angry at someone else when really I was angry with myself, or really I was disappointed in myself, but I didn't want to feel that anymore because that was a learned behavior from my childhood. And so I didn't want to feel it anymore. I gave it to them and I made them feel it and I made them feel bad. And how damaging that is, because really nothing is getting resolved. You're just passing the pain until someone who is emotionally mature and adept enough to say, actually, I'm not going to take that from you because that's not my responsibility. I'm not going to take your shame and your pain so that you can feel better and I can feel worse. I don't deserve that. And I'm so thankful that these days I can be that person. But before, if that had been told to me, I think it would have been hard and I think it would have hurt, but ultimately it would have changed a lot about me at a younger age, and it wouldn't be something that I still struggled with in my adulthood. You know what I mean? It's just so interesting when I'm reading these things or I'm doing research on the behaviors that I have and realizing how much of it is so deeply tied to my childhood, and I'm shocked. But we are so impressionable as kids, and then we build upon those behaviors when we're out on our own and don't even realize where it came from, where it stemmed from. And I encourage everyone to do inner child work. It has really healed a lot for me, and not even just healed it. A lot of it is still unresolved, but just unpacked some of it so that I can bring it to the surface and lay it out and say, okay, this is where this stems from. When I have a moment, when I have the mental clarity, when I have the time, I will dive into this, but it's no longer this secret shame that I carry under lock and key. It is out, it is open, and when I have the bandwidth, I can address it. And I think that when I have the bandwidth, I can share about it with other people. She goes on to say, courage is when you tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. And I think that I've learned a lot about courage because I have these incredible people in my life who come as they are and they show their full selves, even if it isn't the prettiest thing, even if it isn't the best thing, even if it's one of those things where you say it out loud and you're like, oh shit, should I have said that? I surround myself with people who say the things out loud and they let them hang in the air. And I have gotten a lot better at doing that and at telling the story of who I am with my full heart and not worrying so much about if somebody's going to shame me for it, or not worrying so much about someone's going to like it. I say it because it feels good and honest and true to me. I don't say it or not say it to please other people, which is interesting because that shame factor I was talking to you guys about earlier, that a lot of my shame comes internally and not externally. And I find it interesting, and I want to do a lot more research and dive into this in therapy. Why is it? Like, where did that disconnection come from? Where did I start getting so comfortable abandoning shame I get from other people, but I still harbor a lot of shame from myself? I really am very curious about that. That's not something that I have unpacked or worked through, but I was talking in therapy about how when I talk to you guys, I feel really comfortable talking about things that I've already worked through, talked about things that I've already resolved. And that feels like on the external source, it looks like I'm being courageous. It looks like I'm being open. It looks like I'm being vulnerable. And I am, but these are things that I have already worked through. These are things that I've already learned. And so it doesn't really feel like anything anybody says to me is going to change my own perception of self, because I've already pretty much solidified what I feel in that situation. But when I'm talking to you guys about things that I haven't fully resolved or worked through or even have a full grasp about, it feels so much harder. And I suppose that is courage. I suppose me coming to you guys and saying, I actually don't have this figured out and I'm still learning and there are questions that I'm still asking, but would you join me in that? Would you partner with me in that? That is actually more courageous and more vulnerable than me telling you these things while they are vulnerable and while they are deeply connected to who I am, these things that I've already worked through, so much so that external opinions don't really change anything about myself. But what I'm telling you guys right now is still stuff that I'm very uncomfortable with. And so there is a chance that somebody gives their opinion and it hurts me, or that somebody gives their opinion and it shifts something in my brain. I'm very impressionable with this whole realm of shame and embarrassment and vulnerability. And so it's just sharing it feels much more courageous than it does when I've already resolved it. There's this one thing, and I want to backtrack a little bit, when she was talking about children and how they were born imperfect, and then you find out later that they are actually imperfect. She says this quote, "Children are imperfect and wired for struggle, but worthy of love and belonging." And so if you didn't learn that as a child, that even though you were wired for struggle, you are still worthy of love and belonging, in your adulthood, you're still going to struggle with that. Somebody looking at you and saying, I know you're not perfect. I know that you're going to make mistakes. I know you're going to fuck up, but you are still worthy of love and belonging, can change everything for you. And so I know right now, me saying that to you, that no matter how much struggle you go through, no matter how much struggle you create, you are still worthy of love and belonging. I know that me repeating that to you from Brené Brown in your adulthood doesn't unlearn and wipe clean all of that you've carried with you, but I hope that it starts to unlock something. I hope that it starts to transform something in you, realizing no matter what, no matter how much struggle, I'm still worthy of love and belonging. And I think that has knocked off at least like 10% of the pain that I've been carrying, which is kind of a big percentage. It really transformed something in me. And so I'm so thankful that I listened to that from Brené Brown and get to share it with you guys. So I want to end with this. She says, when I work from a place that says I'm enough, I can stop screaming and start listening. And I loved that so much so that I wrote it down. I wanted to share it with you guys. But I wrote down some questions to ask myself as I was going through this episode, some discussion questions, if you will, that I'm not going to answer publicly, but I wanted to share them with you in case you wanted to reflect on these things and ask yourself some questions. And I hope that these are just kind of a jumping ground for you. I hope that you can continue to ask yourself more questions and really dive into this. I only gave a very brief overview of what the TED Talk entailed. It's only 20 minutes. You can do it while you're doing dishes. You can listen to it while you're doing the laundry, whatever. But I highly encourage you listen to get the full depth of context. Anyway, these are the questions that I wrote down. In what areas of my life do I operate from a place of a low sense of worthiness? In what areas of my life can I speak less and listen more? Why do I feel the need to prove my goodness and intelligence to others? Is it that I'm trying to internalize their feelings towards me? And then this isn't a question, it's just a statement that I wrote. I notice it means more to me when people praise my intelligence or my kindness than my appearance. And while I don't believe that's a bad thing, why is it that I need their praise at all? I know I said I wasn't going to answer the questions, but there's one that I actually did want to talk about just because I have a story that goes with it, where I said, why do I feel the need to prove my goodness and intelligence to others? Is it that I'm trying to internalize their feelings towards me? I have this very core memory growing up. So growing up, I was never told that I was unattractive, nor did I ever feel ugly. I definitely compared myself and my body and like my features to the people that I grew up around. I think that we all did that. But I don't think I ever really carried around this like deep sense of insecurity. It's not something that I really struggled with, or insecurity by way of my appearance. That said, I was always very, very insecure about my intelligence. And I believe that it stems from when I was a freshman in high school, we got our class ranks for the first time. And I remember sitting in this AP class, and I was in AP AP classes, not necessarily because the regular classes were so far below my advancement, but I think that I just wanted to prove that I should be there, and I wanted to prove that I was smart just like my peers. I grew up in the school district that was very, very smart. Everyone just was so smart, everyone was so intelligent, and everyone just seemed to know everything. And I definitely didn't share that experience. I think that a lot of my peers had tutors and a lot of my peers had college educated parents, and I didn't have either of those things. And so it was really tough for me when I was learning something in school and I would go home and have to continue on my learning from school by myself, whereas my peers could learn something in school and then go home and deepen their education from the knowledge of the people around them, like their family and their parents. And I just didn't have that, and so it was hard. But I remember that freshman year, I was sitting in my AP class and we were supposed to go down to the registrar to get our class ranks. We had this sheet of paper with our name on it, and we hand the registrar a sheet of paper that has our name on it, and they write our class rank on it and pass it back to us. And then you carry this piece of paper back with you to class. And because I believe that my teacher needed it too. Not exactly sure on that, but I remember carrying this piece of paper back to class. She hands it back to me. I walk away and I look at it. And I just knew in my heart that I had a very low class rank in comparison to everyone else that I was in class with. And had I been in, say, my regular math class, my class rank probably would have felt fine. But being in a class of AP students who really were smart enough to be there and intelligent enough to understand all of these concepts and take them a step further and ask the right questions, I felt like my class rank was very, very low in comparison to them, and instantly I felt this shame. Instantly I felt this embarrassment. It's like, well, I can't lie. You can't lie and say your class rank is something else because that might be someone's actual class rank. And then they're saying, wait, no, I'm actually 57. You're not 57. And God knows I wasn't 57. I was much lower than 57. But like no matter what number I chose that was higher than mine, I was really, really afraid that somebody else in the class was going to say, well, actually that's my number. And then I was going to be caught in an even bigger lie. Or, that's the reason to not lie, that a lie always comes out, right? But I was like terrified of lying at this point, and I still am not a big liar, obviously. Unless you're out at the bar, you can lie to men all you want. That's a whole different conversation. So I get this piece of paper, I look at it, and I was so ashamed and I was so scared people were going to ask me about it that I went back to class and people would ask, oh, what's yours? And I was like, oh, whatever. I would kind of brush it off, and I wouldn't really say much about it, or I would try to change the subject. I didn't want anyone to know that I was ranked so much lower than them because I already felt like in class they could pick up on the fact that I wasn't as intelligent as them or that I didn't grasp things at the same way that they did. Lo and behold, I had raging ADHD, right? Wish I would have known that. Probably would have helped me a lot to not really carry with me this feeling of inadequacy and this struggle of a lack of intelligence, because when I reflect on it, I actually have always been quite smart, but I've allowed these numbers and I've allowed comparison to take that truth away from me. And so as an adult, I think that I still struggle, and I want people so much to tell me that I'm smart. I want people so much to tell me that I'm intelligent, because as I was stating earlier, it's not that I have this baseline of this sense of intelligence, this sense of worthiness, if you will, for comparison. I don't have this baseline where I already feel like I'm enough. I am operating, while higher than I was operating in high school, I'm still not operating at this sense where I feel like, oh, I feel adequate. I feel perfectly capable to handle my own in every kind of situation that I'm thrown in. I don't feel that way. And so when people praise my intelligence and people praise my capabilities to understand world events or to recall history or to say something that was insightful and deep and thorough, people praise that. It feels like my cup is being filled, and that's what gets me to this baseline of worthiness, this baseline of intelligence. I'm not already there. And so that is a problem. That is something that I'm working on, because I don't want to run around screaming, trying to be the smartest, trying to be the best in the room, when all I have to do is simply just be there, because I deserve to be there. And even if I'm in a situation where I am not the smartest in the room and I don't know everything and I have to ask for the question to be repeated, or I have to ask for clarity, I am still worthy of love and belonging. I am still good. I am still valuable. And that's what I'm working on. And it's been a struggle, but it has been so rewarding to every day feel a little bit better and feel a little bit more connected to myself, because the connection I have with myself isn't based on the level of shame I'm carrying that day. The connection I have with myself is based on a knowing of myself and a joy of myself and a praising of myself that doesn't come from being good. It just comes from being. Okay, well, that's all I have for you this episode. I hope that you feel a little bit more connected to me, and I hope that some of the questions that I asked you take and you observe on your own and you try to answer on your own, maybe bring it up in therapy. I would suggest talking, if you do have a therapist, talking to your therapist about the power of vulnerability. I'm, hopeful that they've seen it, but if not, I asked them to watch it. It's 20 minutes. I'm sure they can spare that for you if you think that it would help you in your therapy practice. And I do think it would help you in your therapy practice if you're anything like me. And I think that you guys know me a little bit better now that I've talked through this whole episode. And that's just what I'm working on, and that's what I'm going through. And I just feel honored that I would get to share that with you guys, even though it's not fully resolved. And I feel honored that you guys would listen. I just feel really thankful, but thank you for listening to this episode, and we will talk soon. I love you so much, and I'm on your side.